Julia Gillard today announced her carbon dioxide tax package. It's a huge reform, she claims. There's supposed to be pain and there's supposed to be a gain. Now, I'll start. As far as the gain's concerned, it's supposed to be cutting the world's temperatures. This won't do it. It never was going to do it. Is entirely futile. Now, that's the gain. Tell us about the pain.
Where do you start trying to analyse something which is such a concoction of insanity and stupidity? I mean, it's sort of so bizarre, it's so Alice in Wonderland, it almost defies any sort of rational attempt to analyse it. Simple points, Andrew. Petrol going to a car, the emissions from petrol going to a car, they're fine. The emissions from petrol going to big and diesel in semi-trailers, that's terrible. It's going to destroy the planet. A ton of Australian coal going to a local power station to create power, that's terrible. We've got to get rid of it. 10 tonnes of Australian coal going to a Chinese power station to create power, that's wonderful. It's great for the economy. Chinese can have cheap coal-fired power. Australians can't have cheap coal-fired power from their own coal. It's insane.
And then on the other hand, we complain. We think, oh my God, China is so powerful, it's coming in and buying our farmlands. We're choking our development. We're helping them improve theirs. You're going to get more of it. I mean, this is just national suicide to me.
And you go back to the basic. I mean, your lie is it's not going to do anything to cut global temperatures. But the starting point, $23 a tonne, is not a price which is going to change our habits at all. It's too low. The Greens say...
Even the Greens say it.
Garno says it's got to be 40 or more dollars a tonne. So it starts low. So why are the Greens signing on to this? Because you've got this even more absurd, utter fantasy of committing to cutting our emissions by 80% by 2050. I mean, Julia Gillard, I don't think will be Prime Minister in 2050 or in the election running up to that. I guess, to my mind, the most sensible thing you can say about this is it dismantleable? Can we at some point say we've woken up to this complete insanity, the rest of the world is not doing anything in this regard, they're all just sitting there watching this. If they watch Australia at all, it'll be saying, when do we send the white people in white coats to take away those crazy people down there that are doing all these absurd things?
I mean, you're left with a choice, aren't you? We're the only country that's got a national carbon dioxide tax being imposed, right? So either we're smarter than the whole world, or the whole world's looking at us thinking we're dumber than everyone else. And I think it's the latter. But the thing is here, Terry, I think it's a double con. If you really do believe man's emissions are threatening the Earth, then this package should outrage you, because it will not do a thing about really cutting emissions in any serious way. It just won't. The Greens admit it. If, on the other hand, you're like me and you're a sceptic, even then you'd be outraged, because even if you did think that man's emission contributed in some way to global warming, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. This is so small an amount. Nothing.
And there's another element to this. In order to get this no pain thing through, they are introducing a sensible tax structure. The other side of this element is so-called tax reform, which is the basis for handing back money to low-income earners, so that apart from family payments, so that they won't feel the pain. It's introducing tax reform. We're putting up tax rates. It's not been made clear in the sort of overall stuff, but when you look at the detail, you've got this tax-free threshold, but it's only for people on low incomes, and in order to achieve that, you've got to put up the tax rates above that. So we're going back to higher tax rates, which is the antithesis of tax reform.
Honestly, Terry, if you wanted to believe what some of the world's top climate scientists say, and this is actually an excuse for big government, for a massive redistribution of wealth, whether that was intended or not, that's what it is.
Except I can't sort of get there, Andrew, because it is so inchoate, it's so crazy, it's so incomprehensibly dumb. You can't really attribute some sort of underlying nefarious purpose to it. Another aspect to all this, we've got to trust the Treasury modelling. As the Treasury says, this is not going to make the slightest difference to the economy. The economy is going to power on untouched. Maybe you won't be able to have electric light at home for 24 hours a day, but the economy is going to be untouched. And it says, the wonderful figure that it comes up with, this is going to cost, on average, $9.90 per week. That all this wonderful packages to offset that is going to return $10.10. 20 cents. The Treasury can estimate down to 20 cents a week the net benefit that the average household is going to get. Do you think the average household is going to say, we're going to be 20 cents a week better off? This is absolutely fantastic.
And one other thing before we go, Terry, because we're out of time, but I think there's an incredible repetition of the Telstra deal, where the government with Telstra spent billions to essentially make it rip up a perfectly good network.
Exactly.
This time they're promising to spend an unknown billions, because they haven't said what the figure is, it's not included in the figure, to take out 2,000 megawatts of power. So a perfectly good, cheap power station is going to be commissioned.
And
we're actually
spending
and closed out. We're going to be spending money to destroy another asset. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Exactly the same as ripping out the perfectly good cable that's out there delivering high-speed broadband now. And finally, Andrew, but on the other side of the equation, we're going to pour tens of billions of dollars into quote-unquote renewable energy. It's not dams. That's the only renewable energy that works. It's going to be more and more wind towers, more and more solar, so-called solar farms.
Think it'll work better than pink bats? That was a beauty. But look, Terry, thank you for joining us. Look, that's our view. Maybe you've got a different view, but really, I think this is the greatest act of national suicide I've ever seen. We've gone mad, you know.